Peace and love, good people. Salute. Salute, everybody. Salute. Peace. Peace. Peace to everyone. Um, Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. As I, of course, double check my settings. Hopefully, everything um, is okay. Hopefully, everything is good. You guys hear me well. Y'all know what to do. Put some nines in the chat if you guys can hear me okay. Of course, before we start, want to make sure that I am clear and that you guys hear me all right before we get our discussion going on today. While you guys do that, let's see who's in the building. Let's see here. Oh my goodness, we got some people. Yes, indeed. Salute to my big brother, the Truth. I see you in the building. Thank you so much, King. First one in the building with the love on deck. He says, salute, Queen. Salute to my big brother, the Truth. And the representation, of course, of the mighty LDBC in the building. The first one on deck today. Thank you, Drew. Big love to you. Shout out to Shogun76 in the building. Big love to Adrian Crook. My beautiful sister, Shaquila Fields, is in the building. She says, salute, beautiful sis. Hey, boo. Nice to see you. Salute to the lovely King Daryl in the building. My twin, 10 toes on deck, as per usual. Salute to the King Daryl in the building. The King and the Coach Hudson is in the building this evening with us. He says, salute to the Queen of Boxing Media, my comrade SugarFreeMars. Peace to the chat. I see my good brother Drew. Daryl, he's shouting out some people, showing love. Yes, King Hudson, thank you so much for joining this Sunday. I appreciate you. The Great Mike is in the building. Salute to the Great Mike. Always big, big love for you, King. We got the King Mo. Yes, indeed. He says, notification gang. Salute, Queen. Facts, King Mo. Lovely to have you. Lovely to see you as always. Thank you for joining. We got the King Stephen X, the King in the building. Salute. Big, big salute to the King Stephen X. Always on deck with the love. Peace be on to you as well, beautiful King. Nice to see you. Okay. Yeah, we got the King D. I see y'all. I see y'all making y'all way in. Okay. Now, let's firstly, hold on. Even before I get to that, hopefully you guys have had a good week. You know what I'm saying? I hope everybody is doing well. I hope that everyone, survived the week intact mentally, definitely energetically as well. A lot of shifts and moves happening, it seems, but we stand 10 toes on business all the time. And I know my good people are out there making it work, making it count, every minute, every second, hopefully. And of course, I'm wishing you all well. And, that whatever it is that you are working towards or aiming for, that you stand 10 toes into bringing whatever it is that you wish into fruition, right? So, of course, I'll start by saying that because I'm always wishing my good people well, because I know that we are always trying to do well and become the best version of ourselves in whatever it is that we do day to day, right? All right, so you guys, I'm not gonna lie. Had a lot of questions, coming off of the past, definitely the past week, but it seems, I always seem to be dealing with, compounding elements, compounding energy. As I look at the world of boxing and as I, consider all the changes that we have seen. I don't know how long, each of you have been watching boxing, but, there always seems to be a phase, and I guess that's in everything, right? In everything, whether that's entertainment or, otherwise, there are always shifts occurring. There are always modes that are bending and blending into new systems, new folds. Some things always needing redefining, replacing, and so forth and so on. And I think over the past week, I found myself, I'm in quite, the space of Inquisition. That's kind of the space that I have been in and that I'm frequently in. Always in a space of Inquisition concerning boxing. And I've had a lot of queries over the past week, I think. And for me, I think it goes without saying that boxing is a sport that we deeply respect, right? That's just off top. That's why we are here. That's why we've become acquainted. That's why we stay locked in, right? We are passionate about the warriors that step into that ring, that we support. We admire our warriors, okay? We respect what they do. We respect that they put it all on the line. We show up to support that display of valor and heart. We support that display, of heart that isn't really seen in many sports. I mean, you could see it in combat sports for sure, but just as a across the scope of things, that's not something that you really run into this particular aspect of heart and valor as you do in combat sports, but of course, most particularly boxing, because that's where my passion lies. So it's a very deep sport. It's a very intimate sport, if you will, because it requires the heart to be on the table, because it requires and demands the best of you, because it requires that one shows up. You know what I mean? For me, boxing contains, I think, an inherent sense of valor, right? It's inherent. It's inherent. The sense of valor, the sense of honor, and the sense of heart. But in knowing that, you guys, I have, a lot of my inquisition or a lot of my questions have been surrounding the themes of, just how many people actually value these particular principles and fundamentals that make what we would call an elite fighter. How many people actually value that within today's era and within today's landscape of boxing? Because it's increasingly looking like a showcase to me on some levels, right? We can look at myriad instances where we've seen, just say over the past couple of years, all types of examples where, that level of love and appreciation for that heart and that valor has definitely been put into question, right? Some of those examples have left us bleak over the past couple of years as it pertains to fights being made, fights being not made, the manner in which, fights seem to be less and less available to us, or I would say to some degree, fighters seem to be becoming more reticent about facing competition. All of these things that we have covered, on this platform. We've seen outlandish tirades seemingly increasing in the sport and being pushed to the forefront under the guise of promotion. Just a whole host of things. Of course, we've seen the ever-present threat of drug cheating within the sport. Okay? That threat of drug cheating hasn't slowed down an inch in the sport, even though we are, quote unquote, in a new era. Some things are not changing for the better. You understand? And so my inquisitions throughout the past week have brought some confounding reflections to the table for me, in a way. And it's also brought a need for a broader and unabridged dialogue surrounding some of these very poignant issues that I find to be needing attention and needing service. Now, of course, in looking at that, there's also the flip side, right? Where likewise, I'm looking at and very much looking forward to what the next phase is that we are entering in boxing. I'm looking at the potentiality for change and where it can take place. As we officially make our way, let's say into the halfway point of the year, because we are officially in June. Happy June, everybody. It's June 1st today. Wonderful, right? And so we are officially at the halfway mark of the year. And I'm wondering, with all that we've seen this first half of the year, what stands to be on the horizon as we come into the second half, the second wave of the year. As we frequently speak about, we have our eyes, of course, the real ones, all of us here today, we have our eyes on those who herald an energy and a level of sportsmanship that counteracts a lot of the blighting aspects of the sport, a lot of the more depressing aspects of the sport, right? Like your, like your drug cheating, like the lackluster performances, like the inactivity in boxing, all of these things that kind of leave us, with a sense of feeling deflated a little bit as boxing fans. We are still upheld by the hope of those that we respect, that we consider to uphold the sport, that can counteract those blighting aspects of the sport. And it's these particular men and women that we rock with the way that we do. It's these particular men and women who really hold together, the whole of the picture for us. It doesn't seem as fragmented when we look at people like Clarissa Shields, when we look at people like Devin Haney, David Benavidez, or whoever else you want to name. People who are really, a majority of the time, if not all the time, standing 10 toes in what they do, and who are serious about their legacy, and the upholding of the integrity of their sportsmanship. You know what I'm saying? It's these men and women who hold it all together, and who definitely stand to carry boxing into a promising and fecund future, an abundant future, right? That's how I think about it, at least. So, much about the first half of this year, you guys, if I keep it if I can keep it a buck, has been, if there's a word that I could describe, since we are at the 6-month mark, this year has so far been very revelatory. A lot of things have been revealed to us as boxing fans on all sorts of levels. Facts or no, you guys, a lot of things have been consistently exposed. Characters have been put on the table on full display, whether fighters meant it to be or not. Characters have been shown and exposed, right? We've seen all types of latent corruption in the sport that fighters, ironically seem to be cognizant of, but who also have obviously accepted to some degree, for better or for worse. They have chose to remain silent about it. We've seen aspects of that, this first half of the year going on, right? A level of compliance and silence. We've seen that, okay? We've seen, will and grit on display from certain fighters. Let's say the Davids, let's say the Eubank Ben fight, right? All types of grit. We've seen, of course, within that fight, also we've seen a fight for bloodline supremacy, the maintenance of one's family name. We've seen that this year. We've also seen karma. We've seen karma come back in full swing with a left hook up in these streets, okay? Putting Ryan on his goddamn ass after all of the disgusting talk and the slanderous, scandalous year that we've had coming off of their initial fight with the drug cheating of Ryan. We saw karma in full swing. This year has really been giving it up, you guys. We've seen coon chips in full activation mode. Damn, y'all. I mean, this year has been quite an interesting year so far in boxing, right? For only just now making it to the 6-month mark. Definitely interesting so far in boxing, you guys. And I really think that those who dare to make themselves within this particular climate, those who dare to stand up and make themselves, amid all of this craziness, are really going to be the people who hold the keys and are going to be among the people who set the tone for what is ahead in the coming 6 months and beyond for the sport. So I've got my eyes peeled for that, I feel like there is a scramble going on, you guys, if I'm going to keep it a buck as well. I feel like there is a scramble happening in boxing. Does anybody else feel that? Like a tug and pull that is happening, not just for, or amid the fighters, let's say. It's not just a scramble amid the fighters, let's say, for, wanting to claim supremacy and dominance, let's say wanting to see, who's the best, a scramble for who's the best, by whatever definitions they uphold personally as fighters. But I feel that scramble is also taking place within the systems that look to remold the standards of boxing. I think we've touched on that previously as well. And I think it's a recurrent theme, a very important theme to always bring up or to touch some aspect of at some point or another, because it is constantly in the fold of things. It is constantly, being presented these systems, these underneath subterranean systems at work. And I think that these systems that are in a scramble right now are in quite a bit of a power struggle. And the power struggle to me seems to be for the perception. That power struggle seems to be for perception of the boxing public. And that's always the motivating factor when you think about it, right? When you think about the media, when you think about entertainment, because, boxing is a sport, it is entertainment, there is media, it is media generated. And so that is always going to be a central factor within media and entertainment, right? It's always going to be a fight for this perception. It's always going to be looking to mold and take hold of the perception of the onlooker and the audience. But, real talk, I'm constantly intrigued in all sorts of ways by this era of boxing. And I find it to be very interesting, even though some of those aspects are not always pleasing. It's definitely interesting. And it can be used, I think, to change the trajectory of much of what we see here if we create more of a basis for dialogue. That's why I titled this The Inquisition, because I think that we all need to begin as boxing fans, especially cognizant boxing fans, which I definitely consider everybody, who rocks with me 10 toes here today, to be, of the cognizant, spectrum of the boxing fan. I call this the Inquisition because I find it to be important that we lay things out on the table. We start asking questions as we always do. That's why I love to dialogue with you guys, because you guys bring wonderful, your own inquisitions to the table. And you guys definitely are, willing to hear me out on my inquisitions. And I respect that type of platform. And I believe I was telling the beautiful King Champ side sometime last week, how imperative, places and spaces such as his own platform, or, even when we think about, all the beautiful brothers in the LDBC, who constantly push the needle, and open up all types of dialogue to look just, deeper than what is presented, or to look deeper than what is molded out of the perception they want you to have. And when I say they, I'm talking about the boxing media, the general boxing media, or let's say the major boxing media. There really is a molding of perception. And not that that is a bad thing, because that happens all the time. Your perception is always going to be subject to being molded when you are open to dialogue, when there's information being passed down. We should be molding our perception. But I think that we have to be very careful of, how these things are curated. Because it's very much a political thing, even though we are in the realm of boxing. I don't know how many times I've said that. There isn't anything without its politics. Everything is a politic. Everything is a part of a body politic, and how we are being informed and by what means is very imperative, even in the sport of boxing. And so what is being said by people's actions, which I will divulge for you guys, trust me. I don't know if this sounds maybe like a gumbo right now, but trust me, I will pick into these layers of what I am talking about, touching on themes of perception, how certain antics, certain instances that we've seen unfolding over the past 6 months have been, alluding to a larger agenda or a larger narrative that is being formulated, and has long, and how that's, tied to historical perspectives that have been generated and set up, and so forth and so on. Very interesting time. And so that's what brought my inquisitions forward for this week's discussion. Because I am intrigued about these things, and I wonder about this era of boxing and where it's going. When we consider that this is an era of boxing where, a loss, as opposed to, let's say, 20 years ago, a loss in this era is vastly and increasingly becoming to be seen as a point of the demise of one's relevance, just simply having a loss. And that's something that is, opposite of what has existed, let's say, over the past 20 plus years, when we consider it in context to a historical point of view, right? This whole thing that a loss means that you are no longer worthy, you are no longer valuable, in essence, as a fighter. that's something that this era has ushered in when we consider things like post-Mayweather-ism, if you will, right? Also, when we consider that this is an era that we are in currently where narratives of disingenuous, ill-informed data is being pushed at the click of a button. You know what I'm saying? Not that, media hasn't always, taken those disingenuous forms of, misinforming the public and things like that, but how we digest it more readily nowadays in the age of social media and how that impacts us is vastly different from what it was 30 years ago. And so how our perception is being handled and formed just by the use of social media, just by the use of platforms like we're on right now, just like, your Twitter, just like your whatever it is, it differs vastly, right? When we also consider an era that we are in right now, where all of the tropes of old, let's say, quote unquote, old, right? Those old tropes that the great fighters that we love, let's say, and have loved over the past 50 plus years, all of those tropes that they dealt with that are said to be no more, that we think were just in their time, or that was just the 50s, or that was just the 60s, or that was just the 70s, right? They seem distant to us, but how all of those very things remain very much replete within the idioms of, today's broadcasters, all the publications, and now, of course, as aforementioned, within all the independent platforms on social media, et cetera, so that all of those, old things, even though they're promoted to be no more, and that they come off as having, in this era, we come off as having evolved from a lot of those things. But, there really hasn't been much of an evolution as far as how we see and how we perceive particular aspects of boxing. So that even though things are changing, in other words, we are constantly washing in a history. History is always present. I know that sounds oxymoronic, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? History is present. You can't have the present without a past. And those two things are always in conversation with each other, always dancing with each other. And how they show up is very interesting to me within this framework, within this new landscape, this current era, if you will, of boxing. And that's something that I wanted to go into as well a little bit later. But, nothing much has changed when it comes to the relative confines, especially placed around, let's say, modalities of gatekeeping. Those things are still very much the same in the way that it was. Also, things like just the general politics, how politics are handled in boxing, racial politics in boxing, right? Or perceptions, or let's say partial treatment of one culture or group over others. That's still very much present. And in fact, I would even posit that it's probably even more pervasive when we get into the aspect of Mexican culture and it being put in an adversarial position to Black American culture and Black American fight style. I think that that's something that is definitely worth a conversation, and we will also divulge that a little bit later as well. But, before we get into all of that, of course, I definitely wanted to divulge on the Caleb Plant, Charlo card, right? I definitely wanted to touch base on that because that was interesting to me. And of course, I have some thoughts about that. And I'm sure you guys also have your thoughts about the card that you guys witnessed last evening in Las Vegas, right? So let's get into that. Let's divulge the Caleb Plant and Armando Resendez fight first. That was the headlining fight on that particular card. Very interesting showcase. Interesting fight that we got last evening, you guys, with that. Real talk, I was expecting Caleb Plant to grab that dub, okay? No cap. I'm sure many of us here, went into that fight saying, yeah, that's going to be, I'm saying, Caleb going to go in there, he's going to sweep, he's going to do his thing, right? But that is not quite the outcome that we got last night, you guys. What an upset. What an upset, right? Upset victory went to Resendez. So, in looking at this fight, you guys, some of the things that I wanted to recount with you is that in the opening 2 rounds, we saw Caleb Plant, in my view, he was effectively popping that jab. His jab was beautiful in the first couple of rounds. He looked calm. He looked patient. He looked in control, right? He was very composed at the first couple of rounds in the fight, first 2 rounds, right? He did well at making Resendez think before carelessly punching, right? Caleb Plant established a nice pace with that jab. He kept it in the face of Resendez, even when he was not throwing his jab per se, or throwing his punches. He kept that hand out. He kept that jab active in the face of Resendez, right? Which definitely made Resendez have to think twice about being careless or thinking that he could just rush in this first opening rounds of the fight, right? He stayed behind the jab. Caleb definitely managed to get in addition to the great use of his jab, some nice 1-2s. He let off some nice right hands, right, in the first 2 rounds. Now, the third round, I think that Caleb's beautiful boxing definitely continued. To me, I saw him double up that jab for the first half of the fight really, really well. He definitely continued to have success. To me, he was pretty dominant, even though Resendez was definitely active. Resendez did not start out shy or bashful. He was in there in those earlier rounds. It's just that to me, Caleb was definitely having the more success. He was definitely the general. Okay. But as the round progresses in this third round, I'm still in the third round, right? So before we get out of the third round, Resendez, to me, I start to notice that little by little, even though Caleb is working and Caleb is, keeping the, he's keeping the assertion going and he is winning to me. In this third round, I begin to see little ways in which Resendez begins showing signs of defiance. He started slowly showing signs of defiance. So where he was able to be abated a little bit better in that first and second round, by the end of the last half of that third round, I started seeing little snips, little snips here and there. He started taking off, a little bit more. He started biting off a little bit more, little by little, if you will, right? A little bit more defiance as that round was ending, right? We see Resendez being willing to take some risks. He slowly begins showing less and less respect for Caleb Plant's jab. I started to notice that immediately, you guys. I was like, of course, I'm thinking that Caleb has it under control because he is doing so well, with his boxing. He is looking beautiful. He's looking sharp. You know what I'm saying? But I do turn an eye to Resendez and I say, okay, well, he is, he's starting to show little glimpses of not caring too much about the jab that was being so effective against him in the opening 2 rounds. By the time the fourth round came, you guys, in my view, Resendez started getting more and more bold. So he, from that third round, okay, he's showing more defiance. By that fourth round, he's doing it even more. And we will see as the fight progresses, as you guys have seen, he started taking more and more chunks of respect away from Caleb Plant's name until he had absolutely none for Caleb Plant. In other words, okay? The man is touching up Caleb. He's letting off some heavier shots in that fourth round, right? He's starting to sit a little bit more on his punches. Caleb, however, of course, was still keeping to his boxing. He was doing a damn good job at boxing. But obviously, to me at that point, Caleb was made to respond a little bit more from the fourth round onward. Like he couldn't just, it wasn't just enough, to pop his jab. He had to start responding more and more to that pressure that Resendez was giving. And he had to put a little bit more of his own pressure out to abate Resendez, because as I said, he was starting to show more and more defiance. By the time that fifth round came, I saw, a nice double jab. I saw a nice hand to the body from Resendez, right? That fifth round was a serious, wake up call for Caleb Plant, I think. That's where that wake up call began, because of course the real wake up call for Caleb Plant happened in the 6th round. But in this 5th round, there were some definite telltale signs, that Resendez was with the shits. Okay, he's looking super focused. He looked super calculated. And what was interesting to me at this point, you guys, is how much. Did anybody else notice this during let's say the fifth round, right? How much fresher Resendez appeared to be compared to Caleb. How the fuck did he look? You know what I'm saying? Caleb Plant, in other words, Caleb Plant, by that end of the fourth round into that fifth round, was showing some wear and tear already. I think that's when that little graze cut happened right on the bridge of his nose. He started, whatever work that Resendez was doing, which was proving to be effective due to his lack of respect for Caleb Plant, showing more and more defiance for Caleb Plant, putting his own output out there. It was being quite effective. And the signs started showing up on Caleb Plant as early as the fourth and fifth rounds, you guys. Resendez put more pressure on as these rounds continued. He put more of a nasty intention on those punches as the minutes in that fifth round, took place. He started centering and focusing more on Caleb's body. Did you guys notice that? The body work was on deck for Resendez, right? This was not a Resendez who was carelessly head hunting. In fact, it was quite the opposite, even though he was very much aggressive. He was very calculated. He didn't seem to overexert, even though he was getting more and more increasingly aggressive as the rounds progressed. Okay? And when he got to the inside of Caleb's body, let's say with his own little jab, when he got to the inside, instead of, simply focusing on the head, he switch it up and throw shots to that body as well. Interesting stuff. So, he definitely caught my attention, particularly in that fifth round. Now, of course, in that goddamn sixth round, you guys, that's when the pressure really started coming on. But in addition to that, did you guys notice that Resendez was getting dirty? Motherfucker was getting dirty as hell. Did y'all catch it? I'm like, Resendez, what is all this motherfucking head rubbing and rubbing your hair? You guys remember that moment? I think this was the sixth round, and I think it was something like maybe a minute and 45 seconds left in that sixth round, where Resendez and Caleb Plant are up in a clinch, and upon the referee breaking that clinch, Resendez pushes and rubs his whole entire motherfucking head, full head of hair, right across the face of Caleb. Did y'all catch that? I was like, what the fuck kind of dirty shit? He didn't even try to hide it. Mind you, Caleb was already, of course, cut on the bridge of his nose, right? As aforementioned. He already had that, coming somewhere in off the fourth round or the previous round in the fifth. And he intentionally brushes up against that bridge of Caleb's nose and just like moves his head mad hard, like deliberately, like he didn't even try to disguise that shit. And the referee is like, don't rub your head or whatever. But I don't know. I was like, I don't like stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I definitely noticed Resendez getting dirty as hell. You know what I'm saying? Resendez is looking to inflict further damage pretty much by rubbing, of course, his head against that area. But, it is what it is. He didn't even try to hide that shit. It was wild. Now, like I said, the ref gave him a warning, but I don't know. That wasn't the last dirty thing that he did in that ring. Let's just say that, right? So, Resendez, he never got a point deducted for any of those antics that followed, now that I think about it, right? Nothing was, he just got little warnings here and there. In my view, he got way too many warnings. He should have had something, he should have got some type of slap on the damn hand. But anyway, and I don't really like that ref either, particularly that black dude. Because he was in far too many, controversial, fights for my liking. That particular guy, I forget his name, but I don't really fancy that referee too much at all, right? But anyway, the round continues and Caleb Plant tries to get back to his boxing, okay? But he's looking hella fatigued, right? So that all the him looking not as fresh in that fourth and fifth round. By the sixth round, you definitely start to see him, breathing and stuff like that, especially as Resendez is landing more and more shots on him. So Caleb is looking fatigued. And, what was crazy that is like, by the time the sixth round came, did you guys notice this? By the time the 6th round came, Caleb Plant looked like he was in the 11th round. That's how tired he looked to me. By the 6th round, he looked like he was already in the 11th round of a fight. And Resendez looked like he went goddamn jogging. It's like, what is going on here? Very, very concerning stuff when I saw that, okay? And also, before we even exit the 6th round, of course, he's carrying that fatigue around. And, like clockwork, Resendez catches his ass with a clean and nasty right hook to the temple. I mean, bang, right on the button. Clean as hell. And it definitely rocks the hell out of Caleb Plant. And Caleb Plant tries to hold on. He tries to evade. But, Resendez catches him with a goddamn 1-2. A nasty 1-2. Amid, trying to throw an onslaught of other punches. He catches him with a nasty 1-2. After already catching him on the temple. Crazy work. It was weird. I was like, oh shit, Caleb got, buckled. Ensue when they returned. Now, there is no question at this point, I don't think from any onlooker, that, the tide did not turn in the favor of Resendez. I think everybody at this point was sitting up in their seat like, okay, Resendez, this motherfucker done changed the trajectory of this fight. What is going on? What is Caleb Plant going to do? Resendez was not affected at all, you guys, by the output of Caleb Plant. Nothing that Caleb Plant seemed to do from that moment onward was going to be able to turn that tide. That 8th round, he started battering Caleb Plant. He started battering motherfucking Plant, you guys. I didn't like how Plant allowed that 8th round to be fought entirely on the inside. I was like, damn, Caleb, that 7th round, he pretty much, took the wheel on. Get back to keeping your distance. Caleb Plant did not establish any distance. He completely lost the ability to keep his distance in the 8th round. He completely gave Resendez exactly the parameters in which he wanted to fight within, which is close range. He completely gave up distance. And I was like, damn, Caleb, what the fuck are you doing? You give up that, you pretty much give him, a landslide, into your, weakness. You basically hand him your battle strategy by giving up your distance. If Resendez is going to get inside, he has to be willing to die for it. That has to be your mentality. You don't let him get inside. Caleb Plant, absolutely in that 8th round, just opened the door right for him. You know what I'm saying? He didn't make him, have to die to get inside. If he gets inside, he got to be willing to motherfucking die for that. Caleb Plant literally opened the door for him to just walk right in. And that entire round was fought completely close range, right? I'm thinking, I'm not giving you shit if we fighting. You're going to have to take this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not getting nothing. You got to be, you got to know that you're going to die and pay some severe goddamn consequences. I'm not opening my door for you. That's not happening. But it was what it was. Very interesting 8th round. Caleb Plant handed him the goddamn keys, like I said. And he was absolutely unable to reclaim himself from that point on. And goddamn, it was just downhill from there, you guys. Not only was Resendez unrelenting, and not only had Caleb given away the use of distance, to better manage, that pressure, but of course his gas tank dwindled, got worse and worse and worse and became more tenuous as the minutes passed. So by the time we get to those championship rounds, you guys, there was no turnaround for Caleb Plant at that point, in my view. I was sitting there wondering if he could pull it out, but he just didn't have anything left in him that he could pull out to weather that storm. Even though he did have moments of landing some good shots, even when he was fatigued in the championship rounds, he just didn't have enough in the bag, to completely, to show a level of domination that was necessary in order to abate that output from Resendez. Resendez was unrelenting. He looked, by the 11th and 12th round, that man looked like he went for, maybe a little jog, ran a couple of miles and that's it. He still looked fresh. He still looked active. He seemed like he could have fought 5 more rounds if it was granted to him. That's how fresh he looked compared to Caleb Plant. Very interesting, you guys. The fight did definitely go the distance, which I'm glad. I'm glad that Caleb Plant finished on his feet. He's definitely a fighter that's always willing to go out on his shield. But I'm glad that, he didn't have to touch the canvas or anything like that. But of course, 12-round decision ultimately went resoundingly to Resendez. Now, let's touch on something really quickly. Speaking of queries, upon looking at this fight, you guys, I couldn't help but posit my own inquisition regarding this last night. I had some things come to my mind upon observing, the fight. Now, I guess the leading thing for me was, of course, Caleb Plant's gas tank. I was definitely in question of that, as we all are, and as many of us were in watching that, because of course we know that, Caleb has a history of, having and dealing with fatigue in real time during the back half of his fights, particularly, right? That's something that we kind of got a vibe for with Caleb Plant. Like, he always does good in the first half, but he has to really, really step it up and dig deep for the second half of his fights, right? That's kind of a general known thing about Caleb Plant. So of course, in watching his stamina dwindle during this fight, one can't say that they were surprised when he actually did show signs of being winded and stuff like that. However, I have to say this, you guys. I cannot say that I have ever seen Caleb Plant look like he did last evening before even exiting the first round, the first half of a fight, you guys. Caleb Plant was gassing in the 4th round. What was that, you guys? We know Caleb Plant, to have to really dig deep and pull it out of the gutter in the latter half of fights, not in the first fucking 4 rounds. Why was he looking gassed in the 4th round, 5th round? He barely got it out of the 4th round. Okay? Very interesting to me. Specifically because he is known to, hold on and do very well in the first half of his fights. Interesting stuff. That so early on, he started showing signs of dwindling. Now, of course, one can surmise that this was possibly due to, his conditioning. Perhaps he had some issues in camp. I think I came across somebody who had speculated that possibly it was a matter of him maybe overtraining at a particular point. I don't know. In fact, he said the opposite, at a point during his post presser. He said that he had a very good training camp. He said nothing about overtraining, like he felt good and stuff like that. So, I know it couldn't be overtraining as somebody had speculated. But what I do know, like I said, is that I have never seen, Caleb look like that so early in a fight. And maybe we could chop it up to just, it being Resendez being that motherfucker, right? Maybe he's just him, Resendez, right? Maybe he just applied the pressure that was enough to take the win out of Caleb Plant, right? Perhaps he's just on a level of pressure that was able to overtake Plant. But what was interesting about Resendez was that not only was he seemingly immune to Caleb Plant's output, because it seemed at a particular point, you guys, like not too far into the fight, that nothing that Plant was throwing was really showing any signs of effect on Resendez, right? Which was very interesting to me. Not only was he seemingly immune, but he also didn't receive one abrasion in that motherfucking fight. He had no moment where there was a sign of wear or visible fatigue on Resendez. Okay? Not once. There wasn't one time. Okay? Even though Plant was working. Plant was throwing them hands. Okay? He was jabbing. He was, you know what I'm saying? Even the body shots did not seem to, have Resendez, pant or make a misstep in any particular type of way. Was it a lack of power from Plant? He did mention that he had somebody had asked him in the post presser if he had an issue with his right hand because he had shaken his hand at a particular point. To which Caleb Plant had said, yes, there was a point where my right hand was hurting and stuff like that. So maybe it was just that he could not throw his power hand the way that he wanted to. I don't know, you guys, right? All I know is that we've never seen, we've seen Plant lay dudes out. We've seen him at least bruise motherfucking, faces up. Not a single mark, not a single dent showed up on Resendez, which was very interesting to me. Now, I hate to be the doubtful Debbie in this situation, you guys, but, I got to keep it a buck. Was there drug testing for this fucking fight? Because these are the type of things that I am talking about when I make my inquisition. This is my inquisition as it pertains to this particular fight. Was there drug testing for this fight? I just want to know. I would like to know that, right? I know that this fight was for the WBA interim title. It was not, a full out championship, title match and things like that. But I still want to know if some drug testing was conducted for this fight. I mean, considering all that we have been made privy to over the past week, all that continues to unfold within boxing, that's something that we should never let our foot up off the gas for. Okay? And I'm not inquiring into this simply because I don't believe that, it's not possible that Resendez could have beat Caleb Plant. That is not what I'm saying. I am positing this because this was a high-level main event fight, whether it was a title shot or not. And I think that all of us who call ourselves boxing fans, boxing enthusiasts, diehards, whatever it is that you want to call it, should begin imposing our weight into knowing such things. This is a part of the Inquisition that I find to be an imperative for, people who call themselves supporters of the sport. We need to be making these types of inquisitions for these fights. What was the drug testing looking like here? Because it was very, the differentiation between, Caleb's stamina after round 4 and Resendez. I'm not saying that he's cheating. I'm not trying to take nothing away from him. I'm just saying that these things happen in boxing. And we have been, inundated with all types of, people coming up dirty, people popping dirty, and news breaking and this, that, and the third. And we just got, news of another motherfucking popping dirty. Come on, son. We got to take these things into account, and we cannot be timid or reticent about asking these types of questions. Okay? We need to be quite imposing about these things, in my view, right? That way, we can apply some proper pressure and put some meaningful pressure onto these sanctioning bodies to ensure that testing is done, whether it's for a championship fight or otherwise, like I said. But we should definitely be having these conversations. This should definitely be among our inquisition or our inquisitions as fight fans, and holding those bodies accountable, to ensure that, these there aren't, huge gaps, uneven playing fields. Very important to me. And I couldn't help but think that. And I don't want to, like I said, diminish Resendez as a fighter. I don't know him. That was my first time, watching him fight. I have never, before, seen him fight. I've never tapped into him. I've never researched him or anything like that. Last night was literally my introduction into him and his fight style and how he looks in the ring and stuff like that. So, I don't want to diminish him if he is a clean fighter. I'm not trying to, falsely castigate him. I am just saying, as I will get into, that, these things definitely happen in boxing. And I don't know, something about it looked weird to me, y'all, how early Plant was gassing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what to say about that, except, I would like us to begin looking into these things. And I would like a more, unabridged, honest approach from these sanctioning bodies to publicly, inform the boxing public of the testing measures that, that they, take place, that they set to take place for these particular types of fights. Because I think that we deserve that as a boxing public, who show up to these fights, who go to these fights, who talk about these fights and promote these fights or whatever have you. I just think that I'm part of my inquisition that I was making throughout the week was that I feel like it's our right to know that as supporters of the sport. I think that we deserve that as boxing fans. You know what I mean? And that type of pressure to me is essential. And I think it could change a lot of the things that have been soiling and blighting the sport, right? With all that's been revealed and brought to the surface the past couple of days, with the Reynoso stable and everything that continues to happen in boxing as a whole, I definitely think it's necessary to begin doing this level of reconnaissance and demanding, that these bodies begin taking responsibility for ensuring testing for these fighters. But, aside from that, like I said, from a bird's eye view, Resendez looked good, overall. He came in, he got his victory. He was able to effectively break Caleb down. Okay. He showed a balanced output of aggression, assertion, and patience throughout the fight. Like I said, he was not headhunting. He was not greedy. And his onslaught and his pressure was used relatively well. We'll see what happens next, you guys. As for Plant, of course, he is now back in line, I presume. And certainly the projected fight, of course, with goddamn Jamel Charlo, that was set to take place in the fall, should they had both been victorious, is now up in the air. That was most certainly the fight that we all wanted to see, you guys. Okay, without question. So now that there is a delay in there, possibly, it kind of brings, a funk in the air. That's like, oh, goddamn, this is the fight that we wanted in the first place. We didn't even want to see this card. We would have much preferred to see them facing each other last night. But it didn't happen that way. And of course, with Caleb Plant's loss, who knows what's going to happen? We'll see. But Caleb Plant, interestingly enough, in his post presser, he did mention that there is a rematch clause with Resendez, which is very interesting. So Caleb Plant is most likely going to want to get that back. He definitely stated so in that presser, that he wouldn't mind. I think somebody asked him if he wanted to get it back or fight Charlo. He said either or. But he definitely expressed interest in that rematch because he, of course, made it known. He said, oh, we got a rematch clause. So we'll see what happens, you guys. Very interesting fight. Definitely an upset. I think Caleb Plant is a really good fighter, yet and still, it's gonna be good to see Caleb Plant mix it up with any elite. You know what I'm saying? However, I will say this. If his stamina continues to be an impeding issue, whether it's in the first fucking half of the fight like we saw last night, or whether it's in the last half of the fight like we'd seen him deal with over the past few years, the motherfucker got to work on that goddamn stamina. Okay, he comes in dog shape, it looks like, but we saw him in his previous fights. We saw him gas out entirely with Canelo. He definitely should have won that fight with Canelo. You know what I'm saying? He was dominating. He was commanding the ship that whole time. It's his gas tank that failed him, and that ultimately led Canelo to get the best of him. He just couldn't keep up with that pressure as the fight progressed. And here was another exemplification of that last evening. Even though it happened way earlier than we're used to seeing from Caleb Plant, it was still looking like a stamina issue. So he's gotta address that, whatever it is, because if he does not, I don't know how he's going to fare up against any elite man. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's Charlo or anybody else that he wants to fight. And obviously Resendez is a ball of goddamn energy. Okay? He better motherfucking fix that for that rematch if he intends to, see Resendez again, because Resendez is like the goddamn Energizer Bunny. That man was not tired. He said, I don't get tired. Tired where? Tired what? Okay? Resendez was on it. And, Caleb really has to address that. But, we'll see what happens with Caleb Plant. What did you guys think about that, you guys? Before I move on to my next thing. Let me check to see if anybody, salute to anyone in the building. If I missed anyone. Oh my goodness, it looks like I missed quite a few people. Let's see. Salute to the village brother in the building. Did I go out? I just saw somebody. Well, this is way back up. Daryl, I went out for a little bit. Oh my goodness. Hopefully that it doesn't happen again. Salute to Gold member. He says, if Plant didn't want to fight Charlo, he could have just said that. He didn't have to go and purposely lose. You think Caleb Plant purposely went to lose? Oh my goodness. Oh my God, I did cut out you guys? Wow, I didn't even know. And I was just going on and on and on and on that whole time. Hopefully you guys caught the gist of what I said, or that it came back in time for you guys to catch that. Salute to the Cypher in the building. Salute to the King David in the building. I see you. Salute to the King Freedom's March in the building. Big, big love to Copper Aborigines as well. Nice to see you. The King Snoopy Mac. Yes, my family is in the building. I see y'all making y'all way in. I'm so pleased to have you. Lovely to see my beautiful brothers in the building as always. We got the King Vonnie. Salute to the King Vonnie. Yes, indeed. The King J Grant. He says, blessings, Queen. Blessings to you as well, King J. Always wonderful to have you. Yeah, let me know what y'all thinking. $1 Trillion Dream. Salute to you. He says, Caleb has always had stamina issues. Stormy B-Man said something very sensible, and that was Plant's stamina issues could be from anxiety, and Resendez is 26. Yeah, I definitely was made aware of the age gap. I think it was one of the commentators that had mentioned that during the fight, that somebody did. It was either during the fight, one of the commentators, or someone in one of the post interviews. But yes, they did mention the difference in age as well. Interesting stuff. Definitely interesting stuff. Salute to the King AJ. Hey AJ. He says we'll definitely know if he cheated or not if there is testing involved. Right. Right. I just think that it should be mandated on every level, you guys, especially considering everything that has been, unfolding in this sport. People popping up dirty left and right. Trust me, we're gonna get into that whole, ordeal in just a bit. The brother Copper says it still don't take away from his what? Oh, I didn't understand what you meant by that, King. Gold member says Jordan Plant looks like she can go 15 rounds, so Caleb needs to step it up, or a young bull can snatch her. Oh my goodness, that's diabolical. Gold member, are you trolling? Don't be talking about that man's wife like that. What type of 15 rounds you talking about? Hopefully, I don't even want to know. But salute to you. Salute to you. Yes, King AJ. He says Caleb got beat up. That's basically what I saw. Oh, I mean, you didn't think he looked good? In the first, pretty much for the first, half. He looks good to me. It's just that, like I said, I started noticing him looking war torn, as early as the 4th into that 5th round. And, cuts and stuff like that happen. I mean, it's a war. I wasn't like screaming, to see him with that little, cut on the bridge of his nose. Things like that happen all the time. But it was just the fact that Resendez started to, he started to look more powerful as the rounds went on. And it was quite the opposite of what Caleb was. Caleb, he started, of course, as he tends to do, looking well. But, instead of it, getting to his normal state, which is like the much, much later rounds where he starts to show signs of fatigue, it started happening way earlier. And Resendez just got a burst of energy. It seems like he got more and more stamina as the rounds went on. Absolutely no signs of fatigue whatsoever. Very interesting stuff. Salute to the King Stormy. He says, pay closer attention to your chat. What's going on, King, in my chat? What's going on in my chat, King Stormy, that I need to be paying attention to? Because I do be scrolling up in here. That's how I check your comments. But you meet somebody on some bullshit? Listen, I made you a gunner, King Stormy. All right, big brother? Take him out. I don't play with the fuck shit. So if y'all see it, snipe on sight. All right? If that's what you're referring to. My mods are my mods for a reason. Y'all my gunners. Y'all my family. I trust y'all. All right? But, yeah, let's see what else. The coach, the King, Hudson says, if he is having central nervous system issues, every fight, that is something that can also be worked on but he has to have the right trainer with a good opt plan. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know that his dad is among his trainers and stuff like that. And I don't know what that could be due to. Real talk, Coach Hudson, you know what I was thinking last night? I was like, does Caleb Plant maybe have what you call that, asthma? I don't know what's going on. It was just way too early for him to be gassed. That's why my mind went there. I was like, does he have maybe some type of condition that we don't know of or something like that? I have no idea. I have no idea. But he was fatigued way too early in that fight for me. And it's something, like I said, I have not seen. I anticipate that at some point he's going to get fatigued because he's expressed that in his fights. It's common in his fights, but I was not anticipating to see him look tired and show signs of being fatigued as early as the fourth. That was interesting as hell to me. All the while Resendez was sprightly and bouncy and agile and just acquiring more energy as the rounds went on. He was getting more energy. Okay, so now let's get into this as well while we're on the subject of this card. Yes, great Mike. Lots of punishment, just like we were saying in BF's fight call last night. Yes, and you mentioned that in BF's fight call last night, great Mike. Yes, he takes punishment, Caleb Plant. He definitely takes punishment. Okay, and he was once again getting battered. That fucking 7th and 8th round was brutal. He gotta something has to be done there. But while we're on the subject of this card, of course, we cannot bypass the goddamn Charlo and Cornflake fight. Hold on, King Stormy's talking to me. King Stormy says, because you be talking SugarFreeMars and you get to us a little late. Oh, okay. The chat is good. Got you. Yeah, I don't look at the chat until I'm ready to address the chat. Okay, let's get into this Charlo Cornflake bit. Okay, now what can I say about this fight, you guys? This fight was a straight up beat down from start to damn finish. Okay, what the hell was I watching, y'all? Pure, unadulterated abuse. That's what that looked like to me. Seeing Charlo beat on that damn Cornflake like that. Oh my goodness. What's his name? Cornflake went down like 7.5 goddamn times. It's like that poor man just was what? How you go down 7.5 times? 13.5 goddamn times? Jesus Christ. The man was absolutely no match for Charlo. Okay? It was evident. Even though Charlo had been out of the ring for a year, even though, of course, we've seen a much sharper, much crisper, much more sinister Charlo, of course, in the past, he still demolished that man. Okay? Charlo demolished him. Now, at the same time, of course, as much of a brutal beating as it was that Charlo had administered to Cornflake, we of course want to see, Charlo in there with better competition. So, I hear some people saying, well, we can't necessarily give Charlo, a standing ovation, of course, because look at the likes of which he, was face to face with in that ring, which is definitely understandable. But we also can't bypass, like I said, the fact that this was his first fight back in a year. And this was also his first fight at 168. Okay. And so there's a process of acclimation that goes on. This was most certainly an exercise in getting acclimated, of course, in his return to the ring in such a prolonged period of time, and also in the new weight class. And also, you guys, with a new trainer. So, there's an acclimation period, right? And I think that given everything that was, at hand, he 1000% succeeded. Okay. He came in there and he did what he was supposed to do. He got him out of there in, devastating fashion. He had the man out of the ring in 5 rounds pretty much, right? He didn't even, the fight went to the 6th, but the 6th round didn't even begin. So essentially, he got 5 rounds and that was that. It was great to see, Charlo back front and center in the ring. It was also good to see, get him, get his dub, of course. Wonderful to see Mel Charlo at his side. Did you guys see Mel all up in the sauce? Yes, Mel Charlo was on deck, standing 10 toes with his brother, which was wonderful. He was there. I saw him there during the weigh-ins earlier in the week. He was definitely in the dressing room post-fight. Of course, he had all that fire, all that gusto and support that we love to see of them, that we know them for, showing each other that type of energy. It was great to see them together. I'm not sure if you guys saw a clip of them after the fight where they were in the dressing room and Mel is basically bubbling with all types of excitement. And he's telling him, oh, you got the best jab in the game, right? So I love to see that type of encouragement, of course, from them, because we know that they tend to get into their rifts. They tend to go, for periods of time without speaking. So it's good that whatever that they had, go awry in previous years, that they have been mending and that they are, standing 10 toes with each other, at least at this particular point, which is good to see, right? He was definitely well supported. He had his people around him, his team, right? But you guys, speaking of team, like I said, I can't say that I was not astonished when I did learn that he, is no longer training with Ronnie Shields. No longer training with Ronnie Shields. Interesting stuff, because that was one of my favorite, duos in boxing. Him and Ronnie Shields. Definitely respect Ronnie Shields. He was one of my favorite, coaches for quite a long time. So very interesting stuff that he is no longer with him in his corner. Instead, he has a gentleman by the name of Highland Williams, by the nickname he goes by Big Said, right? Highland Williams. And this is a man who was the first to train both Charlos. I believe he guided both of the twins during their come up as young cubs, if you will. He guided them through the amateurs and even into the pros. He was at their side. But of course, after, parting ways, you get Maul going to Shields, and ultimately Jamel found his way to Derek James. Interesting that in the post-presser, Maul, took a moment to just quickly exalt Highland Williams, the trainer that he has known pretty much for a significant portion of his life. And he had expressed in that post-presser that he shares a bond with Williams, so strong that it could even rival the bond that he has with his own father, which is interesting. So obviously he feels very tied to this man. He feels very close to this man. He trusts this man. So that's a good thing to have, you know what I'm saying? And it's not like, okay, he was with Shields for quite a bit of time, but he is also with somebody who he has a history with. So that kind of makes me a little bit, less worried for his sake, because, changing trainers is always going to be a tricky thing, right? But this is somebody that he has history with. This is somebody who he began his foundation with. So I guess that's reassuring to some degree. So he definitely showed big love to that gentleman in the post-presser. I'm not sure if you guys saw that. He accredited Williams, as being basically a father figure to him. And very interesting career move at this particular point in Charlo's life. He is, of course, 35 years old. I don't know, but I think he was credited as saying that he wanted to get back to his foundations, his roots, his fundamentals. So I don't know in what way Ronnie Shields was unable to satisfy or satiate that in Jermall Charlo, but hopefully it's a decision for the best. And like I said, it is a good thing that it's somebody that he has that level of trust with, given that he's known him for a significant portion of his life. Interesting stuff. Is this man going to be able to bring Charlo back to championship status the way Ronnie Shields did? Because Ronnie Shields surely, had Charlo a champion. That's for damn sure. You know what I mean? So if this man could do the same thing, I can't say that I'm mad at the decision at all. At the end of the day, he knows what's best for his career, and he's going to make those moves, as he sees fit. So that was interesting. What did y'all think about the Charlo fight and all of that? Definitely interesting stuff. Oh, I think Charlo also mentioned, he made it clear, listen, I absolutely want to, be a champion at 168. He even mentioned that he is still interested in fighting Canelo. Did you hear that? He said he still is interested in fighting Canelo. I think someone had asked him if he, would want to run it back with Caleb Plant, even though Caleb, of course, lost. He says, yeah, Caleb dropped the ball, but he wants his lick back at the end of the day. And he's definitely still interested in that fight if it could be made. So that's good to know that the fight, at least the option, is still on the table in some way, shape, or form. I just hope that if they do it, they can't let that shit wait out another year. If it takes another year for Maul and Plant to meet in the ring, that shit's going to be worthless. You know what I'm saying? Because it's already been a prolonged event. They already had beef leading up to the slap. The slap wasn't even the premier, point or aspect or introduction of their beef. They had beef, prior to that. They was talking back and forth, and you know what I'm saying? The slap was just a culmination of, something that they had already been standing on as far as, little tensions between them here and there. So I think to prolong it, beyond a year is going to be a waste of time. So if they do get it cracking, on and a popping, let's get this shit happening. You know what I'm saying? At least the latest it should happen is the start of, the coming year. It should not be prolonged, into next summer, next fall, and the fall after that. Fuck that shit. Get this shit popping now. That's how I feel about it. But, oh yeah. Speaking of goddamn Charlo, y'all. Now, there's no way that I could not bring up this aspect of Charlo, because I feel so, I'm often wayward about the Charlos because it's difficult to stand behind them sometimes. Okay. Now, I don't know what's going on with these men, but there is a repeated activation of the coon chip of the Charlos that I just cannot, I cannot for the life of me, I can't let another coon chip fail. Another coon chip activation slide underneath my radar. Okay. I've let them go by, I've let them skate around the issue. I've let them off the hook so many goddamn times, but this past week, you guys, hearing Jamal say the shit that he was saying was just so mind-boggling to me. I don't know if I could let them off the hook again. All right. Now, you guys know how I feel about the Charlos. I've said it repeatedly. I have supported these men. I rocks with these men, but the goddamn coonery is just too thick. It's happening too goddamn often. Every other goddamn word, I'm motherfucking shaking my head in embarrassment for their asses. It's like, yo, please don't tell me you saying this right now. What the fuck are you talking about now? God damn, somebody put a muzzle on these men. Okay? But as of late, it's Maul Charlo. Okay? Because Mel ain't been seen. Mel's been kind of under the radar doing whatever he's doing, possibly training, who knows, right? Last we heard, he wanted to make a comeback, so maybe he's preparing for that. He's been very low key. Maul? Oh my God, somebody put a muzzle on that man. Now, during the fight build up last week, I know you guys saw this, okay? Maul was out here, on camera, of course, in the promotion of his fight. Of course, T.O.'s name gets brought up, some way, shape, or form. And Maul, for whatever reason, chimes in that he is in full support of Teofimo Lopez. Should he fight Devin Haney? Should he ever mix it up with Devin Haney? He is in full backing and full support of Teofimo Lopez. And this man is saying that despite all of the flagrant, racially disparaging comments that we know Teofimo to have, been spewing all over the place, right? And this isn't his first go at this. This is something that has been a consistent theme with Teofimo Lopez, but most certainly as of late, as he has been riding the coattails of Boots Ennis and Terrence Crawford, he's been on a whole spiel, on a whole tirade, racial tirade, right? Nonstop, as we know. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sean Zettel, but he was the reporter, one of the reporters that was asking, Maul Charlo, that he, to my knowledge, he was the only one that asked him, listen, are you really going to stand beside Teofimo Lopez after all of, the crazy, vile, weird, outlandish shit that he's been saying, racially motivated comments? This is Sean Zettel asking him this. And that goddamn Maul Charlo says, it's almost, it's so ridiculous. You almost have to laugh. You almost have to laugh at this man, Charlo. Charlo says, Oh, well, I say racist stuff all the time. I'm racist too. Can you believe this? This is his way of pardoning the disgusting comments and statements made by Teofimo Lopez over the past few months. Oh, I'm a racist too. Well, we all say racist things. Hi, he's trying to throw the racist jacket on everybody now. Oh, well, we all say racist things, y'all. We all racist. What the fuck? It was absolutely mind-blowing. So as much as I like to stand in support, or have liked at least, because I got to use past tense, as much as I have liked to stand in support, of the Charlos, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I had to renege my support of him upon coming across all that nonsense earlier this week. I'm like, y'all got to get this shit together. Y'all got to really understand, who are the people that are backing you. It's not fucking Mexicans. It's not Ukrainians. You know what I'm saying? It's not Hondurans. A majority of your base are the people of your culture, the people of your community. And so when you get out here just on a tirade saying some, mindless, imbecilic stuff about how you're a racist too, and you're blatantly willing to excuse all of the things that have offended, a lot of your fans who are peeping game and who are cognizant of the shit and who do not appreciate it one bit, you are absolutely, negating a significant portion of the people who support you. What is going on? That's something that I can never wrap my mind around. But at the same time, we are dealing, unfortunately, in this game with a lot of people who are not well informed about their own culture, about who they are. It's actually quite sickening and disappointing, when I think about it on that level. These people have no idea. They basically just show up for a check and say, okay, well, as long as I'm getting that, that's the only thing that I am tied to. There is no culture. There is no blackness. In fact, the more I could disassociate from it, the more that I could appear colorless, the more that I can stand in line with the notions, even if there are notions that disenfranchise or disparage my own culture. So long as I'm getting that green, I'm going to co-sign it. I don't rock with that type of shit. And as much as I find those brothers to be talented and have exemplified, wonderful talent over the years, the buffoonery is just something that I can never, sign up for. So, I can't say that I'm in anticipation at all to see what's coming up from Maul Charlo. We'll see. We'll see when he gets there, I guess. But I'm not hopping over and leaping over, mountains, to see what he is going to do, because the buffoonery just keeps me 10 feet away at all times. You know what I mean? Whether I was a fan of yours or not, the buffoonery, the mindlessness, the imbecility is not ever anything that I could back and support. So, yeah, crazy work, you guys. What did y'all think about that? What did y'all think about his fight? Did you guys think that he did a good job? Do you think that he displayed, something on par possibly to what you were expecting to see of Charlo? Did you think that he exceeded your expectations upon his, first return in the year? How do you think that he looked in his fight against Cornflake? Poor goddamn Cornflake. Did you see Cornflake trying to showboat in that ring? Oh my God. I think that somewhere in one of those latter rounds, I think he managed to dodge the only goddamn punch that he seemed to dodge in that whole entire fight. Left him feeling himself so much that he tried to do a little goddamn shimmy in the ring, like he was putting on for the motherfucking culture. Did y'all see Cornflake trying to showboat? This shit was diabolical. Man got put down 17 and a half times. He managed to evade one goddamn punch, and that was enough to send his ego like, ooh, I got away from that motherfucker. I was like, Cornflake, go sit down, Cornflake. Okay? Shit was wild crazy. Cornflake didn't know what to do with no damn Jamal Charlo. Nasty, diabolical work. Diabolical work. The King Freedom says SugarFreeMars exemplifies class. Oh, thank you, King Freedom. Appreciate you, King. Oh, I have some super chats, you guys. Hold on. Let me go to my super chats. Hold on. Gotta salute to my people showing love. Glenn Mickens in the building with a 20p. Salute to you. We got Pork Chop with the super chat as well. He says, Laura stopped dude in one. He hasn't been a threat at all. Is that what you meant to say? He wasn't a threat at all. Okay. All right, Pork Chop. Salute to you. Thank you for joining. Nice to see you again. Salute to the King Nata, 86 in the building. Says salute SugarFreeMars and salute to the mighty LDBC. Thank you so much, King Nata. Always wonderful to have you and to see you in the building. We got the beautiful Sister Cameron Fields. She says, talk to him, sis. Thank you, beautiful queen. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, sis, for showing love as always. As always. Yeah, let me check for my peeps. The King finally says, something wrong with him. Ain't it? Ain't something wrong with his ass? What is going on? You know, the coon chip was in full swing in that interview. I was like, come on, Mel. You know, but at the same time, I can't ask, for too much from him because, it's something that has been, a consistent theme on and off throughout the years. On and off, with these damn Charlos. The nonsense that they had said about Wilder, you know what I'm saying? It's just an ongoing mess that happened far too often for my liking. And then to see this nonsense, I'm like, all right, bro, I'm gonna have to let you go. I'm gonna have to, look at, give you a little glance here and there, but from a distance. I can't really, invest myself or tie myself, to that nonsense anymore. You can't be talking recklessly and think that I'm gonna, show up 10 toes the way, I used to. Not after that bullshit. I can't do it no more. The Great Mike says, also, I have no clue why Charlo was even asked about the Haneys. Exactly. He says, they had nothing to do with anything Jamal got going on. Yeah, facts. But that was just them trying to probe once again because they are, of course, privy to what he had said earlier about Devin Haney when he was standing next to Rowley and trying to say, oh, well, you should go get Devin out of there too because, Devin showing, that he's going to fold or whatever the fuck that he said to that degree. So they wanted to bring up Devin again. It's like, yeah, why the fuck is Devin's motherfucking nuts in your motherfucking mouth? What the fuck Devin got to do with any of this? This motherfucker's a 168 pounder. The fuck you talking about a welterweight for? They thirst trapping those damn journalists. So-called journalists and reporters. The King Stephen says, when black dudes get fame and money in America, they forget where they come from and the liberation struggle. Completely, King Stephen. 100%. The King Freedom says, if everyone is racist, then no one is racist. Exactly, Freedom. The hell is this man talking about? What is this man talking about? King Snack says, aren't they tied to Haitian roots? Not to my understanding. Not to my understanding. I've never heard that they were tied to Haitian roots. But it would be very interesting if they were. I've never heard such a thing about the Charlos. King Steven says, by the way, Cornflake has a rap video? I'm not joking. Are you kidding? Why am I not surprised? Cornflake is trying to be, the brother from another. He really is. So I'm not surprised at that at all. Cornflake think he is swaggy daddy, okay? He think he is full of swag from head to toe. You can't tell that man nothing different, right? The Coach Hudson says racial tensions high as fucking Texas right now. And he is going to get up there and say that. Are racial tensions high in Texas? Are they? That's very interesting, King Hudson. Wow. I'm not privy to that. What's going on in Texas? Interesting stuff. Salute to the King Freedoms. March in the building, 10 toes on deck as usual. Thank you so much, beautiful King. Appreciate you. Great Mike says, just shows the hate for Devin and Bill. 1,000%. 1,000%. They do anything to, drag them amid any particular topic, whether it has to do with them or not. They're going to find a way, at some point to, put a target on DHP's back. Interesting stuff. But that was that for the Charlo. That was my view of it. Charlo went in there. He got his dub, like I said, as he needed to do. It was wonderful also that he got the stoppage or that, the ref or the doctor had stopped it. But it was wonderful that he, was effective enough to get that done. And it's on to the next. What he has on the horizon, I don't know. Like I said, I can't say that I'm particularly, going to do some research into or that I'm going to anticipate with excitement what's on the horizon for him. I have long supported him, so it's weird to say that, but I don't know. Imbecility is just a turn off for me. I just can't do it. But good luck to him in whatever he does. Hopefully he keeps, continues to get mentally well. Don't wish ill on the man, but I can't say that I'm running to check for him as readily as I used to be, right? Now, Mel, on the other hand, I'm interested in seeing if he's going to return to 154 and claim a level of supremacy or whatever the case is. But I don't know. These Charlos are kind of up and down for me. They got to show and prove before, I'm going to stand solidly on 10 toes the way I used to. But good luck to them in their endeavors. Now, let's get to this, you guys. Are we going to talk about the epidemic of PED usage among the Mexican fighters? I just had to flat out, just put this shit on the table, because I feel like there's a lot of tiptoeing on eggshells right now concerning this issue. And it's not even anything that is new. It's something that is a constant. It's an ongoing theme. Ongoing theme, and has been one. Are we going to address this honestly once and for all, amid everything that has been unfolding over the past week? How much more has to be compounded before this is addressed for what it is? What the fuck is going on, you guys, with this PED stuff and these Mexican fighters? What's going on? Why is this such a consistent theme here? And moreover, why is no one calling it out? This needs to be addressed and dealt with ASAP. Okay? Eddie goddamn Reynoso holds the dirtiest gym in all of boxing. Period. Period. Time after time after time, his fighters within his stable, fighters within his association are coming up dirty, back to back to back to back to goddamn back. Yet the boxing world turns a perpetual blind eye to this. It's been reported yesterday, of course, as we all know, okay, it is no secret, that Jaime Munguia now has tested positive, has had adverse findings in his drug test. Elevated and adverse levels of testosterone was found to be present in his findings, in his sample. Adverse levels of testosterone, you guys. How is it that the stable of Eddie Reynoso, or should I say Eddie Roynoso, how is it that this man is constantly pushing out fighters who fucking test positive, who are coming up with all types of adverse findings constantly? Non-stop, y'all? If this was anyone else, they would be crucified, pulverized in the media. The PED pendulum is in full fucking swing at Reynoso's gym, apparently, year round. Year goddamn round. He don't take no goddamn breaks. Apparently. The fuck is going on here, you guys? Why is there an impediment? Moreover, when I talk about inquisitions, this is a part of that inquisition that I have, and that many of us cognizant boxing fans have and should be having. It's a serious inquisition into what is going on and into what this means for boxing as a whole via the allowance of this type of stuff to take place. What is it saying? Remember when I was talking about in the preface of our discussion today about the perception of and the systems in place that are in an active struggle for the perception of the boxing public? Well, this is a part of that. Because what are they having you perceive? By giving this motherfucker pass after pass after pass. No matter how many of his fighters test hot. What is it saying to you? That there is no reprimanding of this man. There's no investigation or reconnaissance into this man's gym, into his work, into the principles that are being practiced under his stable. Why is everyone so quiet? Why is it so readily accepted? Jaime Munguia is another one added to the motherfucking list. Ain't that something? Let's go back to the world-class boxing gym. Speaking of Texas, to the King Hudson, let's go back to the old Derek James, the one that we knew and respected. Let's go back about 3 years ago when he had a champion lit stable, right? All black stable. Imagine if D. James in his prime, with that beautiful stable that he had prior to its dismantling, of course. Imagine if all of those brothers under his stable, all of the beautiful kings associated with him, had popped dirty back to back to back to back to back. What do you think would have happened to the reputation of the world-class boxing gym and Derek James? What do you think would happen to Derek James 3-4 years ago when his stable was at the height? I think we know good and goddamn well what would have occurred. Okay? He would have been repudiated beyond belief, beyond saving. Yet here we are. Yet another one. Biting the motherfucking dust. Jaime Munguia, another one on the goddamn list of the Reynoso stable. And just as it's been quiet and kept, unjustified, no answers or explanations given, no motherfucking investigation done, same thing is occurring right now. Nobody's really saying shit to that man. No sanctioning body is doing any thorough investigation and questioning into the practices being held there. It's insanity that this is a non-stop occurrence. Okay? There is a tight-lipped hush enshrouding this camp. And it has been so for quite some time. That is deliberate, you guys. Premeditated and calculated. And it ensures that any interrogation or questioning or any level of reconnaissance does not take place. Nothing can take place there that's going to call attention to what is happening with those fighters working under Reynoso. That is deliberate. That all of this is kept hush-hush and has been repeatedly for all the times that it's happened up until this point. At what point is this man going to be called out and brought front and center in the line of fire by the boxing public? It's disgusting. Let's call it for what the fuck it is, because nobody would have any level of reticence for anybody else for a prominent black trainer with a stable full of black fighters who have consistently and consecutively tested positive under his direction. Let's not play blind here. And it's not to say that a black trainer should have been held accountable if that were the case. Because he should, no matter who the fuck is doing it. But the fact that pressure would be applied in one way and not in another is the example that I am painting here. That's why I speak about the perceptions of and the scramble for how the perception is handled and dealt with and what the boxing world is communicating to you via these specific actions. This gym has produced, something like 5 fighters off top who have popped dirty under this man. Canelo popped, of course, for clenbuterol. Valdez popped for phentermine. Racist Riri, okay, who has long been at that gym and even tried to return back to Reynoso over the past year, despite, of course, entering into Derek James's stable. He popped for Ostarine and Nandrolone. And, of course, he's long associated with Reynoso's gym. And like I said, he even tried to attempt to go back to Reynoso's gym at a particular point last year. I wonder fucking why. Louis Neri popped for Zilpaterol. What's going on here, you guys? And now we got motherfucking Mugia with adverse elevated levels of testosterone found in his system. Not a natural spike, adverse levels. Each time this happens, you guys, within this man's stable and among his fighters, none of the general boxing media makes a fuss about it. They report it as if, I'm sure you've seen it because the report just came out yesterday, right? I'm sure you've seen the post of it, right? They report it as if, perhaps maybe, the fighter had a shoe that came untied. No weight, no severity, no pressure, no questions. Oh, they just put it out there. Oh, some adverse findings was, whatever. No heat, no pressure. And in the very next minute, these same people who are found to be popping dirty in that fucking Reynoso camp, in 5 minutes are going to be called warriors. Soon as you turn your head. Today they're going to drop the news that somebody popped dirty. Next week they're going to be called warriors. Like nothing fucking happened. Oh, the warrior. They're going to be coveted once again, cosseted once again. Like nothing happened. Back to praising Reynoso even as a great trainer. Oh, trainer of the year. He's one of the greatest trainers we have right now. Really? Is that why every fighter he's working with is juicing? Getting access to juicing? Miraculously? Doping? I'm totally appalled by this system in boxing, you guys. I'm appalled by the system that sustains this type of corrupt practice, for the benefit of particular groups. In other words, non-black fighters. Non-black fighters. Because that's who this works in the benefit of. Non-black fighters and trainers alike are repeatedly upheld and cosseted in a way that black elites, whether they be trainer or whatever, are not allowed the benefit of. Big Baby Miller, for example, he popped dirty a couple of times, right? That situation, let's just take example A, that happened with AJ back in 2019, I want to say. Okay? That situation with Big Baby and his drug scandal put the world in a frenzy. Y'all remember that? An uproar. Absolute uproar. He was sidelined. He was criticized and castigated, and he was dealt with using a long-handled spoon. Nobody wanted to get near him. Everybody wanted to just put him, off to the side. Nobody wanted to deal with him. Everybody looked at him sideways. Oh, he's the one that cheated. Oh, he popping dirty. He took the roids. He took the roids, y'all. Look at the drug cheat. Look at the drug cheat, big baby. Right? And quite honestly, he received the treatment that one should. You know what I'm saying? When somebody pops dirty in a sport where lives are already held in a precarious position. Right? You would think that a person should be shunned. So they shunned Big Baby Miller, right? Natural reaction. You are playing with the lives already held precariously in the balance when you are a fighter of the elite level. Yet the same dismay was not extended across the board in this sport whenever other examples of it came up. The same dismay and disgust is not given out equally, in other words. And I know a lot of this is going to pose some cognitive dissonance among, those who may come across this and not be ready or willing to handle this particular, point that I am making and driving in. But you're going to have to fucking deal with it. Some people are going to have the cognitive dissonance, y'all. Okay? But a large portion of drug cheating scandals over the years have consisted in an alarming number of Mexican fighters. Significant number of them. It's not a goddamn coincidence, you guys. That's not to say that all of them are, taking, are into that. Hell's to the no. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that of the cases that make it, at least, to the public forum, are in a significant numbers, of Mexican culture. What is going on? And we have to look at this for what it is. For what it is. We got to call that shit out. And if we need to be corrected or if stats need to be shared with us so that we can have some further information and interrogation into the situation, then so be it. But as of now, this is what it stands to be. A crazy significant number are Mexican fighters that have been reported, at least publicly. We have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge what is presented. We must also factor in how much of the boxing world celebrates this particular Mexican culture as being, quote unquote, warrior clad. Right? This is what this particular group is held up as. Not that they are not deserving of that. I'm just saying this is what it is. Much of the general boxing public totes these people up and celebrates this warrior, fighter. Oh, the Mexican is the warrior. You know what I'm saying? And this is also a culture that is often and famously presented as an adversarial opponent to Black American fighters. That's another aspect that we're going to dive into. So now I'm talking deeper into my analysis is going deeper into perception and the forming of perception that I was speaking about earlier. Okay? Mexican culture is largely held in an adversarial position to that of the Black American fighter. Stay with me, y'all. A lot of y'all already know where I'm going with this because you're already on it. Okay? Within this mindset, within this framework of the Mexican culture, automatically being held up as adversarial to that of the African American, within that, there is an inherent need in the realm of competition for the Mexican community to want to compete on as close a footing as possible to the Black American fighter, who is coveted and heralded for his boxing skills and athleticism. In other words, it seems to me that some within this particular group some of these people are opting for an any means approach in order that they are able to reach a level of what they believe will bring a semblance of equipoise, meaning balance or the evening of scales, evening of a playing field. They have I'm going to do whatever is necessary to at least, make these grounds a little bit more even as I am competing with, people of an exalted athleticism, athletic ability. And they do that via the use of PEDs. This is a way to them, or to anybody taking a PED, to even a playing field in their mind, to increase some stamina, to, get the heart rate flowing, to retain muscle, whatever the case is. Of course, it depends on the substance they are using. But the performance enhancement drug is to do just that, to enhance a particular measure or matter or factor within their performance so that they can have the upper hand. I think that it is to be considered that the mystique created around Mexican fighters and the warriorship surrounding that particular myth is that they, are then a lot of these fighters who take that mindset, not all of them, but the people of that clad who take the mindset, that they have to take these drugs to live up to that, warriorship, to live up to that, narrative. They are forced then to live that out in the ring. And they do that by taking the drugs. It just is what it is, for better or for worse, depending on how you view it, of course, because some people obviously have no problem with it. That's why they take it. Some people have no problem with it. That's why they are hush-hush about the people who actually do that. Some people have no problem with it. That's why they don't reprimand these particular fighters when they are caught. They're not so ready to castigate them in the way that they are ready to castigate a black fighter who is caught, let's say, using the same goddamn drug. Look at Tyson Fury. How many fucking times has he been caught on goddamn PEDs? That's another non-black group, for example, right? I think it's definitely, poses a detriment to the people of this culture who are, indulging in this by the droves, because, it is both self-serving because they get the idea that they are satisfying, whatever they deem to be inferior or unable to compete or perform on a natural level. So it's self-servicing that, but it's also self-inflicting. Because what it's really doing essentially is corroding the very warrior heart that they deem to have. How the fuck do you have a warrior heart if you got to fucking juice up to your neck in goddamn drugs just to get in the ring? This was precisely the issue that was going on with Ryan Garcia last year and amid the whole Devin Haney thing. And we saw these people molding the perception of how they wanted Ryan Garcia to be received and treated in the public. So much so that they started, they had grown adults out here pardoning the cheating of Ryan Garcia. This is how they play with perceptions. So they are playing with the perception that, it's okay for him to take the drugs because it's not that big of a deal when it's him doing it. But you got all types of people to this day still calling Devin Haney a drug cheat because he signed up with VADA. You got people out here calling Terrence Crawford a drug cheat because he is signed up with Snack, like Devin Haney. People wanting to desperately call Carissa Shields a drug cheat. Do you notice the pattern? These are black fighters who have never popped dirty in their careers being associated with drug cheating. Meanwhile, the actual fucking drug cheats who are non-black are not only are they not castigated and reprimanded when they are caught popping dirty like Munguia, because he is not being publicly castigated, he is being coddled. Just as Canelo was, just as Valdez was, and everybody goddamn else popping dirty over there. Not only are they being, saved and spared the rod, but in Ryan's case, we see an example of them exalting the fact that Ryan goddamn cheated. It's disgusting work. Absolutely disgusting work, you guys. Okay? Like I said, there is a public that has coddled the notion of this, alleged machismo of the Mexican fighter, to salute them as a fiery, walk through the wall type of fighting style. All of that is exalted, and for those people who uphold that in an upright way, they get my salute. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got no beef with that whatsoever. But in an attempt to maintain that, via synthetic, false means, that is the problem. That's the problem. To think that that could only be fully realized in these Mexican fighters via the use in the avenue of PEDs, so that they can compete on a level, equal playing field, or a close enough playing field to, let's say, the Black American fighter, or any fighter for that fact, who they get in the ring with, is disgusting and needs to be fully interrogated and eradicated. It's crazy to me. And herein lies the issue that they have to feel the need that this is the way that they need to enhance their abilities. Okay? We got to take an honest, hard look at that. What is the boxing world accrediting as the quote unquote warrior? What is it that they are accrediting? Because if they are overwhelmingly and majoritively using that moniker to describe a Mexican fighter, but we see Mexican fighters back to back consistently testing positive, being reported with adverse findings for PEDs in their system, but are simultaneously being called warriors, what is it that is being communicated to you, the onlooker? What is it being communicated to other fighters, both Mexican and Black and whoever who participate in the sport of boxing? What is it communicating to the boxing world as a whole? Because yes, they are popping for PEDs, but they are also being exalted for warriorship. Do you understand what's being, inculcated into you when you sit back and you take this in? You got to be aware of that. You got to be aware of the messaging and the forming and reforming of perception via this type of output. When I spoke earlier about the reformation, of the standard, the forming of the standard of boxing, the shaping of perception within boxing, and how there is a scramble for that perception, this is what I am speaking about. I never heard of any fighter, you guys, in Eddie Reynoso's stable referred to as anything but a warrior. And this nigga got motherfucking 11 people, 11 people who popped dirty under him. The fuck? But everybody in there is a warrior. And it's crazy because, simply because you are a Mexican fighter, you are instantaneously associated and crowned with that particular moniker of warrior, whether you pop dirty or not. That in itself is a messaging with multifaceted layers and dimensions to it. The media makes sure that not a single person who calls themselves a boxing fan of the sport ever gets it twisted to the point that they can refer to as a Mexican fighter as anything but a warrior. Great Mexican warriors have indeed graced that ring, you guys. Okay? For sure. Without a doubt. Beautiful Mexican fighters. Okay? But I will not call anyone, I don't give a damn who you are, a warrior who has artificially and synthetically produced their courage. Fuck out of my goddamn face. You should be held accountable with the full force and the full brunt of a penal, system to reprimand that behavior. Why is it being allowed here? Why is it allotted to this particular group? A lot of this has to do with the ongoing, need and fantasy that these people have to supersede the athleticism and prominence and dominance of the elite black fighter. Okay? But of course, it goes beyond that as well. I would say that is the premier thing. Yes, because they know that they have to compete with elite black males in the sport who dominate the sport and have long done so within the sport historically. But that it's so to the point that they take this shit to fight themselves and whoever else is in the ring as well. Nobody is beyond this. But the damaging aspect of this is that when you get somebody on performance enhancing drugs facing a prominent elite black male fighter, his being compromised, the elite black fighters being compromised is the celebration, is a point of celebration, despite the fact that these people can be juiced up to their necks. And they are pardoned from the use of those PEDs so long as they can use it to get over an elite black fighter when it can be done, as exemplified in the Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney scandal that has been, taking place over the past year. We got to keep it a buck, y'all. Okay? But also, the general aspect of it is that, fighters' lives, no matter what PED user is getting into that ring, are jeopardizing the life of any fighter who they step into the ring with, which is absolutely unacceptable on all terms. In all ways, it is unacceptable. And nobody is able to, really deal with this outright as to why this particular stable of Eddie Reynoso, who happens to belong of a Mexican culture and houses fighters of a Mexican culture and have had all fighters of Mexican culture underneath him, overwhelmingly pop dirty, and there is no interrogation, no investigation whatsoever. Which means that there is no means to stop it. Which means that obviously he is serving some type of purpose for the reason why he is allowed to time and time again go unscathed and unreprimanded. Why is that? These are the types of inquisitions that are going to be the foundation of change when we put action behind it and when we start pressing and demanding that these things not take place. Or whatever we have to do as fight fans on our basis, whether we got to keep talking about it, making videos about it, or signing petitions, or, adding people on goddamn Twitter, whatever the motherfucking case is. But the inquisitions have to be set forth. We cannot act like it's not goddamn happening. We can't say, oh, well, that's another fighter. And then, some other news, goddamn comes out and everybody's goddamn on to the next goddamn thing. And everybody forgets that this is the motherfucking 11th fighter popping dirty under this goddamn man. And we're going to be, so readily accepting of when they tell us, oh, he's fighter trainer of the year. And everybody all of a sudden has goddamn selective and convenient amnesia about all the dirt bags he's housing. These are the types of conversations we need to be having as a cognizant boxing, base. It's important for us to do that. What do y'all think about that? And how did you guys feel when that news broke that yet another of Eddie Reynoso's, fighters have come up dirty? I'd love to know your thoughts about that as well. I get very disgusted thinking about that because I know what is on the line. I know what is on the line. I seen the fight with Patrick Day. We hear reportings, of men, beautiful men, young men losing their lives, young women. This stuff is happening in real time. And sometimes it can't be, sometimes these people are not, necessarily fighting somebody that's dirty. It's just it's part and parcel to the game that these are a part of the risks that you take, going to battle. And these are these people's livelihood. And so they sign up for that fully. And so to have, even more odds placed against you, arrows pointed at you, even more than you already have upon walking and entering into that ring. It's sickening to me that there would be such a leniency in how these types of things are handled when these cases and these things are revealed, when these findings are showing, obvious, use of performance enhancing drugs. I don't like the leniency. Let me see what my people's talking about. Pugilist, salute to you, Pugilist. I see you. He says, if black boxers was getting caught juicing, the media would be all over it. 1000%. Salute to Stray Godzilla. He says, Mexican fighters always cheating. I'm embarrassed for them. Damn. Oh, my beautiful sister, Boxiana. Hold up, my sis. My sister's in the building. Hold on. Let me wrench my sister up. Where do I do? Oh, I always forget how to do that. Bang. Yes, Box. Hey, Boxiana, my beautiful sister. She says, sugar. Salute to you, my good sister. Keep cooking and stay on these niggas' necks. Sis, I'm on a job, queen. Y'all mean? We in here. Thank you for joining me, beautiful sister. Good to see you. Good to see you as always. I felt like I haven't checked in with you guys in a little while. But if you guys are on this evening, I'm definitely going to make sure I stop through this evening. I definitely have some time too. So if you guys are on tonight, Queens of the Ring. Also, everybody make sure y'all go check out the Queens because I believe they are on tonight. Crazy work. The King and the Coach Hudson says, worse than the Russian Olympic teams of the 70s and 80s. I'm telling you, just repeated offenses. And they just go, absolutely, attended to. Nobody's saying a goddamn word. Everybody's turning a blind eye to this shit. How the fuck is this possible? 11 goddamn people? What is going on? Nobody's raising a goddamn eyebrow. There is no boxing commission that is looking into this. There is no sanctioning body saying, excuse me. You know what I'm saying? 3 was too much. What the fuck is going on up in here? Nothing? And on the part of the general boxing media, nobody is posing any serious inquiry into this either. Aside from the, lackluster, half-hearted reporting that, some findings were, discovered and that they are just sharing the information, but that there is no inquisition to follow. There's no serious interrogation of this stuff. Where's the accountability? Why the fuck isn't that gym being shut down? How is it that it got to the number 5 or 6? I mean, as far as we know, because of course he's probably got a whole bunch of people that he has worked with that, don't qualify for testing. And so the fighters that don't have to test God knows what the fuck these people are on. It's insidious on every level. Absolutely insidious. And it's alarming, to me, the fact that there is no, cause for alarm among the general boxing media. It's repulsive. That there's this sort of tepid response to Jaime Munguia's, elevated levels of testosterone. It's disgusting, you guys. The great Mike says, has Munguia been punished for popping dirty? Not that I know. I have heard nothing. I saw that he had made a statement on Twitter saying, so throughout my career, I have blah, 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 blah. Whatever the hell the case was that he said. I didn't even bother to read the statement because I'm like, well, why the fuck is this in your goddamn system? You know what I mean? Like, why is this even here? Let me see if I could find what he had said. Hold on. Because I know he said it, Ring Magazine had posted it. I'm going to find it for y'all. Hold on. I'm just scrolling through here. Yeah, they posted a statement of him, making a, official claim as to what the hell he thought about it. I guess it was his first words as to, how he felt about the news being put forth or whatever. And of course, Canelo just jumps in and backs him. Oh, Eddie Reynoso, I could, vouch for my, team members. He had said something as well. Of course, coming to bat for, Reynoso and that whole camp, of course, because that's his home base. That's where he comes from. That's the same home he pops dirty in when he popped dirty for goddamn Combuterol. So, of course, he's going to go to goddamn defend. Absolutely, he's going to. Okay, I don't know where they posted that. It was Ring Magazine, but I don't see it on their. Oh, is this it? Oh, no, this is just the news that he popped dirty, but I don't see the official statement here anymore. Oh, here it is. I found it. So the official statement, I guess his first words, after the news, broke that he popped, he says, throughout my boxing career, I have undergone numerous anti-doping tests and have never tested positive. I was tested twice during the training camp and both results came back negative, which is why receiving this notification of an adverse finding has been a complete surprise to me. Several experts have explained that there are multiple ways contamination can occur, and I am fully willing to undergo my retroactive, current, or future testing to demonstrate that I have always been a clean athlete. I will not make any further comments on this matter until the process is concluded with the results of the B sample. So that's his thing, Just, like it fucking matters that his first tests came back negative. What the fuck does that have to do with you? With the fact that you may have been microdosing? Didn't Ryan Garcia's test come back goddamn negative too in his first testing when they tested him initially throughout the camp? You know what I'm saying? Until they tested him the day before the fight and the day after the fight, and that's when those goddamn positive findings came up. These people are wild, yo. Very wild. It's way too consistent over there in that arena over there at Reynoso's gym, for it to be treated so lightly. It's actually appalling. The King Uncommon in the building. Did I salute you earlier, King? Nice to see you. If I didn't, I see you in the building. Salute to the King. The richest one put a Pinocchio nose. Facts, King Rich. Nice to see you, by the way, if I didn't greet you earlier. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. You know what I mean? Something absolutely has to be done about that, and we have to take that shit seriously. We have to take it seriously. Absolute disgrace to the sport. Okay? Now, speaking of a disgrace to the sport, you guys, really quickly, if I can. Teofimo Lopez continues to tread forward with his motherfucking clown show. as I'm sure all of you know, okay, and have been seeing throughout the week, okay? What else can be expected from such a buffoon except a clown show from Teofimo Lopez, you guys? This clown is just, as if you think he can't get any more annoying, he tops himself time and time again. After outright and egregiously calling Turkey al-Sheikh a dick on Twitter, okay? He spelled out dick in dictator. D-I-C-K, tater, is what he called Turkey al-Sheikh. As we are all privy to, I'm sure you guys know about that, right? He took to Twitter and did that some days ago. And this coward, this puss, within days of that post, ran to his goddamn Twitter with his pinkies up in the air to type an apology to Turkey al-Sheikh. Okay? He took to his Twitter yesterday with his pinkies up in the air, and he said, "I'm sorry, Daddy. I apologize." Yes, he did. He surely did. He took to Twitter and he apologized as fast as he could, y'all. Did y'all see that? This is what he said in his goddamn apology. He says, "To His Excellency, I take full responsibility for my inappropriate words on the X app. I publicly apologize to he. I will conduct myself with greater respect, humility, and professionalism." This is what Teofimo says within his, I guess half-ass apology that he gave to Turkey al-Sheikh. This puss was so wrangled, you guys, because really what drove this man to madness was the fact that he was so, overcome by fear. The fear of fighting Devin Haney. Wrangled by the idea of fighting Devin Haney, that he became so mad because he couldn't use Boots Ennis as a way out to avoid a fight with Devin. This is all this shit is about, you guys. Okay? He was so scared of fighting Devin that he was willing to run into the lion's den of Boots Ennis, the goddamn killer, the sniper. He was trying to run into the arms of a sniper just to avoid Devin Haney. Crazy work. Crazy work. This was his plan. This is why he was pushing so incessantly for the fight with Boots Ennis. Okay? That he ran as fast as he could and thought that he was going to get some type of out, some type of, safety with Boots Ennis. Motherfucker, you're going to die by motherfucking firing squad when you go to Boots Ennis's front door. Are you kidding me? Your death ain't going to be sweet. Your demise ain't going to be sweet, motherfucker. How are you running into Boots' arms like that shit is going to save you? It's an ass whooping whether you go goddamn left or whether you go right. Okay? What is wrong with this clown? Is he an imbecile or is he an imbecile? It's crazy. Absolutely crazy, you guys. What? I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. He ran and he bitched on Twitter talking about, "Oh, Turkey fired me, y'all. Turkey fired me. He don't want me no more." And then he's going around saying all types of outlandish, disgusting, vile things. And now, you going on a tirade against Turkey, the motherfucker who's giving you the most money you've ever seen in your goddamn life. Wasn't he just fighting in a goddamn gymnasium against Claggett before he hooked up with Turkey? You better put some fucking respect on Turkey's name out here. How dare he? It's crazy work. Oh, Turkey fired me. Absolutely showing how deluded, unprofessional, and vile he is, careless he is. This man is willing to deep throat his way out of a fight with Devin. That's why he ran and apologized to Turkey, because he wants Turkey to find some way for him to get out of this goddamn fight. He's like, okay, well, if it's not goddamn Boots, how are you going to save me from Devin? Crazy work. It's absolutely diabolical. When you really think about this stuff, you guys, it's diabolical. The measures that this man has taken throughout the years and up until this point to completely circumvent, you guys, any and all amounts of smoke with Devin Haney. He doesn't want it. He wants to do his best to go and navigate as best he can around Devin Haney. It's sick. It's sick, the level of fear that this man has for Devin. The level of duckery should really be studied, you guys. This is crazy work. I've never seen such a thing. What is going on? And what's crazy is that it's not like Boots, like I said, wasn't going to exterminate you just the goddamn same. It's not like Boots wasn't going to motherfucking obliterate and demolish his ass. How the fuck did he think that Boots Ennis was a safe haven? You want a bullet to the motherfucking chest or to the temple? Like, you know what I'm saying? Either way, you know what I'm saying? You out. You getting taken down. Boots ain't gonna spare you. He gonna do you bad. He gonna do you greasy. He gonna do you dirty all the way. He gonna do you nasty out here. The fuck? Crazy work. And so he's mad that Boots is like, listen, I got bigger fish to fry, nigga. I'm trying to become undisputed. I ain't fighting your little ass. Boots don't owe him a motherfucking thing, which was my point the whole goddamn time for the reason why I never liked the goddamn Teofimo and Boots conversation to begin with. And then you got people on here, over the past week. I'm sure you guys have seen it. Oh, Boots out here ducking, y'all. Boots ducking Teo. Who the fuck is Teo? Teo is a goddamn cockroach to a mountain. The hell Boots doing looking twice at no goddamn Teo? He don't bring nothing to the goddamn table. He offers nothing. All of the benefit would have been had for Teo. Teo would have been the one to beat the number one king at 147. Teo would have been the one, to acclaim the belts. He offered nothing to Boots Ennis. It was a lopsided, handicap match from the beginning. I just did not ever understand, why the conversation was even brought up. And I did not understand why Eddie Hearn, was positing and posturing such a thing. It was weird to me. I never liked it. And I'm glad that Boots, stuck to his guns, and it's like, nah, son, nah, I'm not interested in that. Interested in bigger and better things. Who the fuck is this nigga? You know what I mean? So it was crazy. Like I said, he was begging for the beheading, to be done by Boots Ennis instead of Devin Haney. And the fact that is such a fear in that man. I mean, when you think about it, you guys, I think that he has a phobia of Devin Haney. I think it's to that level because the level of evasion that T.O. has been doing is diabolical, you guys. Like, crazy work. T.O. is absolutely terrified of Devin Haney. I'm convinced that clown has a phobia of that man. It's insidious. It's crazy. It's bizarre. It's weird. I don't know what's going on with that man, but he will do anything, and I mean anything, to not fight Devin Haney. But I am hoping that is the fight that Turkey is, pressing for. Devin is obviously on board. Obviously, we all saw his hit list. He called him out. He says, let's get it popping. Let's do this. Number one on a hit list. Let's get it popping. So Devin is already 10 toes in as usual. He's ready to get this work done. That fight is long overdue. Set that shit up. No more goddamn ducking and running. If this motherfucking rat wiggles his way out of making this Devin Haney fight, after Devin Haney already, you know what I'm saying, has the agreement with Turkey that he is all in for this fight to commence, he has to be crowned, the biggest motherfucking duck of the past 25 years. Hands down. This is crazy. How do you avoid a man like this since 2019? Almost a goddamn decade of ducking Devin. This shit is nasty. Diabolical work, you guys. Insane work. What did y'all think about that? What did you guys think about the whole goddamn... Oh my God. I can't wait until this man is handled and dealt with. Oh, and of course, mind you, of course you guys have saw that he was in, the ring with, not the ring, but the gym with Mayweather. He was at the Mayweather gym. Did you guys see that as well? I really can't wait until the day comes that this man is pummeled once and for all. I mean, it really cannot come more expediently enough for me. Okay. He definitely was at the Mayweather gym. I'm sure you guys have saw that throughout the past week. You know, the first thing that came to mind when I saw him, you know, with the footage and the whatever at the Mayweather gym and the stupid shit and the jump rope, and it's just like, oh my God. You know, for all the great things that Mayweather can do, has done, and has shown us throughout his career, as multifaceted as he is, let's say as a businessman, right? We all herald him as a businessman or whatever, you know, as one of the goats of the sport, of course. You know, the man that could virtually and essentially do it all in boxing. For all of that great stuff, he sure does have a hard goddamn time staying on fucking code, that goddamn Mayweather. Why is it so hard for Mayweather to, he don't know what code is. I don't know, perhaps he can't spell it. That's why he can't perceive of it. What the fuck is going on with Mayweather? Huh? That's the one thing that this motherfucker cannot do is understand and fathom what staying on code is. Okay? He has been defeated by the code time and time again. Niggas think he's undefeated, but being on code defeated this motherfucker, I don't know for how many goddamn years. He's constantly being defeated by staying on code. Staying on code kicks his motherfucking ass. Do you hear me? You hear me? Okay? Somebody throw in the towel because staying on code is beating the fuck out of this man. He just can't do it. Can't stay on code to save his goddamn life. It's the one thing that he can't beat. Like, what the hell is going on with Mayweather, you guys? You know, he simply just, you know, I don't know what's going on with him. He struggles. You know, he can't, you know, the concept of, you know, there's no code concept of, you know, that sticks to him, right? Sometimes he seems like he gets it, and other times he, you know, completely just drops the ball, right? This is the same man, let's not forget, that went in front of the camera exclaiming not too long ago, maybe a few years ago, right? How racism is still very much alive in boxing. You know, oh, does racism happen in boxing? Absolutely, right? He's advocating, you know, standing behind the aspect and the fact that racism is very prevalent to this day in boxing, right? On the one hand, he'll say shit like that, but then turn around. Let's not forget that this is the same man who stood with all his might to defend the Gucci brand, right? To defend Gucci when Gucci, within one of their collections some years ago, had basically did an ode to blackface in one of their lineups, in one of their clothing, you know, lineups. They had an ode to blackface. They had some big ass red lips, like something straight out of a goddamn minstrel show, and they plastered those big ass red lips on a black turtleneck. So you can pull up the black turtleneck to your lip. That's how high the turtleneck goes. And then when you wear that black turtleneck, you get this big ass motherfucking menstrual lip. Looking like blackface. This is Gucci. They made that fucking sweater. And Mayweather is defending that shit at that time. This is also the same person who stood behind that with all his goddamn might defending fucking Gucci. Okay? This is the man who is now housing Teofimo Lopez in his gym earlier this past week. Saying this is the man that we are dealing with. Okay? Having Teofimo in his gym, fresh off of Teo, throwing around racial slurs like it's some motherfucking Tic Tacs. Oh, you need a nigga? Here's a nigga for you. Here's a nigga for you. Here's a nigga for you. This Mayweather got this motherfucker in his gym. That's just throwing the N-word around. Constantly. Referring to one of the best fighters or the best fighter pound for pound as a nigga. This is who Mayweather is housing in his gym. I mean, you really just can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. And I want to bring back the point of perception once again, and Inquisition here once again, because I want you to inquire about this perception and what is being said. I want you to always look and think about the communicatory aspects of what it is that you are seeing within the messaging in boxing, because it's plenty there. It's plenty there, and it's ever present. Because you have to look at what is being explicated to you, essentially. you, the boxing fan, and what is being explicated via these actions to every other fighter, and particularly black fighters in the sport, moreover, as they are sitting back and witnessing this. What is Mayweather saying? What is he posturing by housing Teofimo Lopez in his gym, straight off of the back of these, racially motivated, disgusting, vile things that he said, and the unapologetic stance that he's had in saying these things, and the lack of backlash that he faced for saying those things? What is Mayweather then saying by housing this coward in his gym, taking him in under the wing, and moreover, what is also being said to Devin and Bill Haney, who we know that he has a lot of tumult as far as his history in dealing with them with. A lot of tumult between the Haneys and Mayweather. So now that he is taking Teofimo into his gym, knowing that Teofimo is one of the top adversaries for Devin Haney, knowing that Devin Haney is pressuring and pushing for a fight with Teofimo Lopez to be next, if possible, what is being said? That he is now in the doghouse, under the arm, if you will, of Mayweather. And Teofimo Lopez is on Instagram Live talking about, oh, I got the one showing me, not just anybody, but the one. What's being said here? As Teofimo being the adversary of Devin Haney. And also consider the fact that Floyd is among, and just the Mayweathers in general, okay, is among Devin's foremost and premier teachers. I mean, the shade and the meaning, and the messaging is insidious, in myriad ways, you guys. Myriad ways, that messaging. And so the perception is constantly being played with. It's constantly being tapped into within boxing in so many ways. And we have people of our own, or, people that we could view to be of our own culture, participating in this. We got people like Mayweather housing Teofimo Lopez. You understand? We have all sorts of things going on. We have a media, publicly, doting somebody like Ryan Garcia, protecting Ryan Garcia. But there was no protection of a Devin Haney when he was cheated, outright and unabashedly cheated and compromised by a drug cheat. He was castigated, berated for having fought 12 rounds with a drug cheat, getting on his feet each time he was put down, finishing the fight on his feet, showing courage, showing all types of heart, even despite being cheated, showing valor, showing grace, even in the face of the aftermath of all of that when the news broke. He was castigated. Meanwhile, Ryan Garcia lost outright. And he is protected, babied, shielded from any, who was talking about Ryan? Who was talking about Ryan? And the bullshit motherfucking shoulder, hand injury excuse that he tried to come with also over the past week is an absolute disgrace, is absolute folly. That motherfucker ain't got no goddamn hand injury. Oh, now Oscar De La, oh, he just had his hand surgery. Oh, and now, he's going to get a shoulder injury too. So now it's his hand and his shoulder. This motherfucker's out here on some my neck, my back, my neck and my back. This nigga's on some motherfucking, you know what I'm saying? Or his Friday shit, my neck and my back. What the fuck? Which one is it? First it was his hand, now it's his shoulder, now it's his shoulder and his goddamn hand. Next thing you know, you gonna tell me he bumped his pinky toe on the coffee table? What the fuck is going on? What is going on? Diabolical work. The cowardice is just, this is how they are looking to cover up this motherfucker's cowardice. Absolute cowardice, because they want to divert the attention away from the fact that he deliberately bypassed the rematch to happen with Devin Haney, for the reason why Devin Haney is now on the neck of Teofimo Lopez, because he already knows that Ryan Garcia is out here running scared and cloaking himself in excuses of being injured for the reason why he is now, and Oscar De La Hoya is saying, oh, well, I think that, oh, he had the hand injury, surgery. Now he's going to get the shoulder. Oh, I think he should take the rest of the year off. This is their way to justify and disguise the ducking of Devin Haney and that rematch with Devin Haney that was supposed to take place in the fall. It's disgusting work, you guys. Absolute disgusting work. And it would go over your head if you allowed it. You know what I'm saying? For the reason why, my real ones in the building are constantly, partaking in some sort of inquisition. We are questioning these things. We are looking at these things. We are sizing these things up. And we are saying, I don't think so. Oh, what about this? Why is this like this? We are in a constant state of inquiry, as we should be, because these things are not adding up, and we have to be able to see beyond the perceptions that are being molded for us via these boxing medias, these boxing platforms, and via these fighters who do not uphold the level of warriorship and valor and heart that I spoke of in the preface of our discussion. And that's why I was asking, how many people really, really respect this thing that we love so much, this boxing art that we respect so much? How many people are actually about that life? Because I think we would be surprised to find that it's probably and possibly far fewer than we would imagine. But the shining light, at the end of the tunnel is that we have people. We do have some fighters out here, holding it down. We do have some fighters of valor, whether they take wins or losses, like Caleb Plant. He is still a stand-up fighter to me. You know what I'm saying? Like Devin Haney, of course, always on 10 toes. And all the other people that we could run the gamut on. There are those, one of them ones that whether they see defeat or not, they're going to stand 10 toes, and do their best, to show their respect for the sport and to show respect for us as their supporters. And of course, ultimately for themselves and the legacy that they look to create for themselves. But yeah, we have to be aware, you guys. A lot of messaging going on. And I think that people, one of the things that I hate the most is that people just like, oh, well, it's just boxing, you're looking, it's just boxing, it's just a sport. But, everything is politicized. I can't say that or stress that enough. And that's why, the matter of the PED issue with Jaime Munguia, I really wanted to centralize in this discussion and spend as much time as I could on it without being too long-winded. But I did want to have a thorough discussion about that because that is a part of the propagandizing of the boxing public's mind. That is a part of how they inculcate into you whatever standard or perception that they are forming. That is how they get that into you, the acceptance. So that, next time, a Mexican person pops dirty, it's not even, you're not even going to think twice about it. Next time a non-Black person pops dirty, you would be reticent to ask a question. You would be reticent to make a judgment. You'd be reticent to press the issue on them because it is becoming normalized. A lot of things deserve our inquisition, you guys. A lot of things. But, that's why I love this space, because I like to push that type of dialogue. And I'm glad that I have a community, as I always say, that I respect, who doesn't mind, going into the trenches of the framework and asking those deep questions and positing our own position and our own stance on that. I like that I have a very opinionated community. I like that I have a community that appreciates a level of intelligibility and coherence. Okay. So I respect that, we get to share all of those and divulge all types of topics honestly and unmitigated, honest truth, forthright look into, the sport that we love so much, because it deserves our integrity. Just like the integrity we're expecting from our fighters, we have to be courageous enough to insert and posit our own integrity into it as well, and not be afraid to have these conversations. You know what I'm saying? Because I know it can get tough when it centers things around culture and the differentiating aspects of that, and preferences and drug cheats and all these types of things. People tend to be afraid of that, but, I really want to push the needle on that, in the name of all the people that I respect who do this boxing talk as well. This is a platform where I want to centralize, those heavier, meaningful conversations We are not here to wave pom-poms. We are adults. Yes, we love boxing, but we are also cognizant people. And we got to be real about the things that we see, and we got to be brave enough to discuss them. So I appreciate all of y'all. Let me check in with y'all before we get out of here. I don't want to hold you guys up too long. I know I missed a lot in the chat, you guys. It was a lot for me to say today, so I wasn't necessarily like scrolling as much as I tend to do. But let me see if there's some last minute things that you guys have been saying. The King Darrow says, notice he's helping another racist fighter to beat Devin. Exactly my point, King. Absolutely, twin. The King Stephen says Mayweather ought to be persona non grata in the black community. 1000%. The richest one, salute to you again. He says, the only thing Floyd loves more than money is attention. Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. Best believe he's going to throw T.O. right in the trash in about 5.3 minutes. Okay? He's like, oh, T.O. is, he said nigger. Maybe I could ride the wave of that. Next thing you know, T.O. is in the trash. And there's no more affiliation with Mayweather. Coach Hudson says, these dudes are traitors to their nation, family, and tribe. Spineless, gutless Negroes. 1000%, son. Diabolical on every level. The pugilist says, Floyd acts like an attention-seeking broad. You're damn right about that. It's definitely a level of immaturity to him that I just cannot ride with, even though I salute everything that he has, attributed to the sport, outside of the sport, and I think he should be way much more mature than that. He seems very catty. There's a level of immaturity there, where he could really be picking up the torch and taking, the honing in of these young fighters seriously. I really do feel like, he has like an all about me approach to a lot of things, and I just can't rock with that. I'll never wrap around my mind, why he is so seemingly loathsome towards Devin Haney. I just can't take that, especially when his own father said that this is the man who is going to be the next Floyd. If anybody else can do it on the planet, it's Devin. Obviously you've been with that man since he was pretty much a damn baby, a young kid. So that disdain, I just can't get over. In addition to all the other catty, petty things that he seems to do. I can't get with that. The King Uncommon. Oh, you're talking to Coach. Yeah. Yeah. Facts, family. That's all it is. Yeah, you guys. So I think I'm going to end it here. Oh, salute to the King Akondo. Nice to see you. I'm glad I scrolled up. I would have missed you, King. Salute to the King Akondo if you are still in the building. Salute and infinite love to all the beautiful people who joined. Oh my goodness, the lovely King and my twin, Daryl, blessing the super chat as always with that beautiful support, standing 10 toes. He said, just adding some color to the chat for speaking that fire. Salute, Sugar Free. Infinite love. You already know what time it is, Daryl. 10 toes always. Thank you so much for always blessing me with your presence each week. That's definitely more than enough. So, to see you blessing the super chat is just icing on the cake, because I definitely appreciate you just overall. I appreciate all y'all for joining me. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I know I kind of been going on and on for a little bit, but thank you so much, you guys. I really do hope that you guys have a wonderful week ahead. I got to give my blessings to you before I go. Hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Definitely wishing you guys well in whatever you have going on this coming week. Happy June. This is one of my favorite months. So I'm wishing you guys, a wonderful month ahead. Definitely a wonderful week ahead. Keep in touch with me in the community page. You guys know that I already, I love to talk to you guys there throughout the week. And also drop any little updates if I have any commentary. Of course, you'll see that. Keep an eye out for me. But definitely, I'll be in touch with you in the community page as usual. That's it for me, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed our discussion tonight. I can't wait to see you on the next one. Peace and infinite love to you guys, Okay? Be well, be safe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.